This segment of Hak5 is brought to you by GoToAssist.
Wonder if the emergency vehicles have these in them as well.
I would, if I were a corporate or a government entity running or maintaining a large fleet of vehicles, I'd totally put these in
every Crown Vic.
In every Crown Vic. Or whatever the hell they drive now. Don't they driving Fords?
I guess I don't know. Don't they buy American?
Yeah.
No, are the American and are the European, like, okay, so you mentioned that there's a 32-bit number. Okay, so it's not really a MAC address, but is there the equivalent of like an OUI where you can tell the manufacturer, like, oh, that's an Audi or that's a Ford?
There doesn't seem to be. It seems to be much more dependent upon the company that makes the tire pressure monitor itself. So, for instance, Ford and Honda and all these different companies, they don't all make their own tire pressure monitors. They usually buy them from another company. Schrader is the first one that comes to mind. They're famous for the Schrader valve.
Okay.
So it seems like they have their own package structure, their own particular setup. I haven't spent a lot of time mining.
But there isn't like a standard, this is how you speak.
Oh, yeah.
You were even talking about the frequency difference and the modulation difference. But when you get down to it, they all have like a kind of a core identifier?
Yeah, and the ID, I think, is unique for every particular manufacturer of TPMS, but they never really got together, apparently, and agreed on a single packet structure or some sort of a central authority for assigning identifiers.
Okay, so you were saying that you're riding around and you're trying to figure out like which tire is which. How do you go about doing that?
Well, I went for a ride around with a friend of mine, and as we drove, I would record the tire pressure monitor transmissions, and then we would stop somewhere and we would let air out of one of the tires. And then we drive a little bit more and then let air out of another tire. And eventually we collected enough data, I was able to graph it, and you could see a drop off, one tire at a time, where the pressure went from 33 pounds or PSI to 30. And you could say conclusively, well, that had to be the right front, or that had to be the left front, et cetera, et cetera.
Does this mean you could go around an entire parking lot and just start identifying all of the vehicles in it?
Not quite. These tire pressure monitors, because they're installed potentially for years within a tire, you don't want to have to. You don't want to. Sorry.
No. I just realized where you're going, and I just remembered that actually right before coming to this con, my 2008 R32 just had to have it replaced, and I think they even said the battery died.
Yeah.
And wow, now that I'm thinking about that, that was a really expensive battery to replace.
Yeah, they probably replaced the entire unit. I think they're sealed, but I've never actually held one in my hand. All of the research I've done to date has been online or with other people's cars.
That is awesome.
Yeah, I'm. What can I say? I'm a cheap guy. I'm driving a 15-year-old Toyota Corolla.
So the parking lot, we're not going to identify everything.
Right, because these devices are installed long term in your tire. They have to last for several years, at least as long as your tires last. So they usually do not operate while the car is parked. They've got some sort of an accelerometer or some sort of a mechanical switch that detects rotation, at which point they turn on and continue to operate until the motion stops for a certain amount of time.
And the data that you get out of them, it's just temperature and just, do we get the actual acceleration data? Do they have an accelerometer?
I haven't looked at a lot of different makes and models yet, but so far I've only seen temperature and pressure, and then some flag fields that indicate apparently the state of the sensor. One of the bits I imagine indicates the battery status, but I haven't concluded that yet. Again, because I don't have any tire pressure monitors of my own to experiment with.
It's time to get some in, because I can only imagine that there's a debug mode or a programming mode or a pairing mode, kind of like you pair your Wiimote to your Wii or something like that.
Well, that's another thing to explore. Is apparently some devices can be activated using an LF signal, 125 kilohertz. That puts them into some sort of a programming or factory mode that allows you to do some untold things. So there's some experimentation to be done there still.
There's a potential denial of tire pressure attack possibly there.
Right, yeah, you could go and reprogram, assuming that these devices are reprogrammable, their IDs are reprogrammable via this mechanism, you could go and re-ID everyone's tire pressure monitors, and suddenly they wouldn't be getting any reports at all.
But I think the scarier thing is just the whole idea that we're sitting here with your laptop and that $20 dongle, or this could be, say a mesh network of pineapples and dongles or whatever have you on street corners. Do they transmit enough that we could actually pick up everybody's signal?
devices typically transmit every minute, assuming that there's not an issue. Apparently they transmit more often when there is. The catch is that every car has 4 tires, which means that on average you're going to get a transmission every 15 seconds. And that's often enough, especially in slower traffic like here, that as people roll up to a stop sign, you're almost certain to get at least one of their tire pressure monitor IDs received.
So definitely at a stoplight. What about the range? Like what you were saying that the manufacturers are like, oh, but it's so weak of a signal, you could never get it from afar. What was your test environment like?
Well, most of my work was done sitting at home. I live on a fairly busy street, and there's 2 lanes of traffic going by, usually a very strong rush hour. And I'm sitting at my kitchen table with windows out looking on the street. I'm maybe 30 to 40 feet away, and I receive a lot of tire pressure monitors as they go by.
And this is with just that tiny little antenna, not even like a high gain Yagi or something?
Right, yeah, and I dream of building up a Yagi for this application, but
nice.
Mike Ostman and I were talking a few days ago about grabbing some coat hangers from the hotel and just soldering something up, but we didn't quite make. I was too busy finishing up my presentation, as I should, as a dutiful speaker.
And then tell me about the code, because what is that? So you go into GRC, you know the frequency and the rates and all of those things. Now you need to somehow process it so that it's somewhat useful. Is that what your code does?
Right, exactly. Yeah. So first process is to capture raw data. So you use GNU radio with RTL SDR or maybe a Hak5 block and pull in the raw data. I like to just save it out to a file for later processing. I've got a separate Python program, which again relies on GNU radio, that identifies significant signal energy over periods of time and just pulls those pieces out into separate files that I can process. It throws away 99.9% of the giant capture file that I wind up building when I'm pulling down the raw spectrum. So now I've got a much smaller set of data to work with. And then again, I have GNU radio blocks and Python scripts that will go through the individual bursts, attempt to demodulate the raw bits, and then decode them. Typically they're Manchester encoded, and identify.
And then for the people that aren't familiar with Manchester encoding, that's just what, error recovery stuff?
Manchester encoding is more about modulating an RF signal to be more suitable for radio transmission. It guarantees that there are sufficient bit transitions from 0 to 1 or 1 to 0 so that you can recover the bit clock and figure out where the bit boundaries are so that you can get a valid bit stream. So you have a real packet to work with.
Right, but that's what your code does, is it figures all that stuff out. And what does it spit out? So it just gives you the actual packets on the other end?
Well, my tools are more, they're not quite about solving or decoding for a particular vehicle so much as providing a set of tools for people to go and take new captures from new and different vehicles that I've never worked with before and identify the characteristics and kind of peel the onion, if you will, and get deeper and deeper and closer to the final packet and the final field values and IDs, be able to graph them and see, well, this looks like it must be temperature, and this must be pressure, and this must be the CRC, and this is how the CRC is calculated. So it's basically a tool set for figuring these packets out when you observe new and different packets.
So what do you see in the future? Do you imagine, with enough community development and people interested in this stuff, that there would eventually be, I don't know, like a standardized way to pull it into Wireshark or something, or what's your dream here?
I think we could get to that. The industry comments about there being 147 different protocols rings true to some extent, because the sort of brute force way to handle that is to build 147 different GNU radio receivers. Unfortunately, that's computationally a little excessive and wouldn't perform very well on anything but the beefiest laptops. So I'm hoping to create something that's a little bit more intelligent, examines bursts, and uses techniques like Fourier transforms to extract spectrum details that can be used to infer bit rates and frequency shift keying deviations and things like that. Statistical analyses that will figure out, well, maybe this is an 8-bit checksum and this is how it's computed, and kind of figure all that stuff out for you, or at least help you along the way.
Yeah. This is so exciting because it's kind of like just discovering like a new, I don't know, it's discovering a totally new protocol. So what do people need to get the code and start using it, and then where can they find, the future development of this stuff?
Well, all of my work thus far is posted on GitHub. So github.com/jboone, J as in Jared, Boone as in Daniel Boone, /TPMS, Tire Pressure Monitoring System. I posted all my code there, and I'm going to continue refining it. I'm going to try doing these sort of automated characteristic detection techniques and try to evolve it to a point where I can pretty much analyze any of these packets and get a nice built-up piece of code that'll do all that work. And all you have to do is go out and get like an RTL SDR dongle, a Hak5, an antenna, that kind of stuff, and run it on your laptop.
I am thrilled. This is so cool. Thank you for sharing this with me, Jared.
You bet.
Appreciate it. And for everything else that you do, they can find you over at?
Sharebrain.com, my little single-person open hardware company.
It's really cool. You guys should check it out. He does fun things with Flux. Cheers.
I know how it is working in IT. It means constantly jumping from one problem to the next, and everything, of course, needs to be solved fast. Every minute counts. I mean, you can't waste your time juggling different tools and duplicating data entry. That's why I use GoToAssist, less copy and paste. It's from Citrix. They're the leader in remote support. And get this, you'll have all the tools you need in one nice little integrated cloud-based platform so you can work faster and more efficiently. See, GoToAssist includes 3 different support tools customized to your needs. Well, there's the service desk so you can log incidents and track the resolution. There's GoToAssist monitoring to proactively identify issues before they become your boss calling you in a huge headache. And of course, remote support to provide live and unattended support to any PC, Mac, or mobile device from anywhere to resolve issues quickly. I've been using them for years. It has saved my bacon on more than one occasion. So you can assist anyone. Sign up for your special 30-day free trial today. Visit gotoassist.com, click on the Try It Free button, and use the promo code HAK5. That's gotoassist.com, promo code HAK5.
And it's time for the Technolust photo of the week. This week, we have a couple of cats because I love my cats and they're full of Technolust. Now Samuel's cat, Kaiser Wilhelm, is hanging out, and so is Wayno's little black kitty, perfect for Halloween. You can send your photos over to feedback@hak5.org with the subject line Technolust.
We're here at Toorcon 2013. I'm here with Doug, what's up, and Andrew. How are you guys doing?
Doing great.
So tell me about this talk. People are like really buzzing about this. You guys are doing some CDMA hacking. What's that all about?
Yep, so what we did was we took a Femtocell from a CDMA carrier and we hacked it, basically, so it allowed us to intercept phone calls, text messages, picture messages, as well as data connections.
So how does this differ from some of the other attacks that we've seen recently with, say, USRPs doing kind of, OpenBTS with GSM?
Yeah. Well, so we basically took a commercial device and kind of used it against itself in a way. It's femtocells are just mini cell towers, but they're also Linux boxes. And so we just kind of went in through the console cable, rooted it, and we were able to write some custom code that got us the data that we wanted.
So where do you go about getting a femtocell, and then who makes these, and what are they used for outside of fun packet sniffing purposes?
So you can buy these right at the Verizon store. They're $250. You can walk in and buy one. They're manufactured by Samsung. And these are just completely trusted endpoints on the cell network. You use one of these in your home if you don't get great service to begin with.
Now you say completely trusted endpoint. Is that one of the things that might, say, differentiate it from a USRP trying to spoof a GSM network, or what? Because you're saying this is specific to this carrier, Verizon.
Yeah, this is already trusted by Verizon, so that means that this just acts as if it's any other Verizon tower. When your phone's near it, your phone doesn't know it's femtocell, it just thinks it's another Verizon tower and connects to it as if it was a real tower.
So if I set one of these up in my house, not only is my Verizon phone going to connect to it, but my neighbors as well, potentially?
Yeah, potentially. The range is anywhere between, it says you have to be about 15 feet away or within 15 feet in order to get your phone to associate to it. And then after that, depends on the signal of other towers within your general area, but 40, 50, 100 feet, it really depends on the environment. And it's also worth saying that there's a ton of carriers all over the world that have these too. They're, they're in Europe. Almost every major carrier in the U.S. has one as well. AT&T, Sprint as well as Verizon.
So the idea here is that it doesn't just relay a cellular signal, because obviously the only reason that you would have one of these is because the cellular signal is so weak, right? These actually connect to what the subscriber's actual home internet connection?
Yep, that's right. So basically it just, it looks like a Wi-Fi router, and it's got an Ethernet port on it. You connect that to your home internet connection, and it broadcasts CDMA wireless instead of Wi-Fi.
So in that case, why don't you just sniff off the Ethernet and, you know, your day is done, right?
Because it's encrypted. They do create a IPsec tunnel back to the carrier's network, so it's all encrypted.
And so there's no like downgrade attacks against that or anything?
Nothing that we looked into, to be honest. It was just kind of easier to connect to the console port that was built in and, you know, get root on the device and kind of take it from there.
We kind of a console port built in. That's kind of beautiful. So
yes.
Thank you, Samsung. What is really the first step for you guys into, you know, getting into the core of the device and being able to see what's going through it before that VPN tunnel?
So we had to create a custom VPN driver, that's a custom kernel driver that sat there to grab packets, because their VPN implementation was happening in the kernel, so you couldn't just TCP dump once we rooted the device. We had to write some code to actually look at the packets inside the tunnel.
Yeah, but it's actually just an embedded Linux device, as everything is nowadays?
Yep, that's right. It runs Monte Vista Linux, and you know, it's got everything that's involved with that, as well as custom binaries that allow it to act like a cell tower.
And so what kind of stuff are you able to see? Or is the VPN only one layer of encryption? Like if I'm, you know, doing text messaging over this, is there another layer of encryption over top of that it's going to thwart you from being able to see me talking to my girlfriend about my cat back home?
No, it's there's no more encryption because we were able to get the packets before they were encrypted, and then after they were decrypted. So we created a kernel module. We inserted it such that the priority was before the packets got decrypted by their kernel module, and before they were encrypted by their kernel module. And so then what we were able to do is just see all the plain text. There's no more encryption after that. The text messages are encoded a little funky, but you know, it's just a very simple script to decode that and see them in
And this is how all of the carriers implement this?
That I have no idea.
Okay. But this is kind of like a common, the Femtocell is a common thing amongst carriers worldwide?
Correct, yes. There's, I mean, last we knew it was something like 30-something carriers worldwide that had a Femtocell of some kind. So they're small embedded devices. I can only assume that they are similar, but we really don't know. We didn't test more than one.
And so when you had that eureka moment of like, oh man, there are my packets, what was the first thing you did with it?
Sent a text message, made a phone call, tried to play it back, looked for mobile data, made an HTTP request, and then saw like actual GET request of yahoo.com and the thing. We're like, cool, we have everything.
Yeah, that was pretty great. Yeah, so our first custom code was basically a packet dumping piece of software that, you know, just dumped all the packets, and of course a phone call is just a bunch of tiny UDP packets, and so that was a little overwhelming, and that was a bit of a challenge to reassemble that into a voice call. But data was very easy because it just showed up in Wireshark. And the text messages, again, took us a little bit to be able to decode those properly and find out which packets held the actual text from the message. So that was a little difficult, but not too bad. And then picture messaging was kind of cool too. So we just take a picture message, you send it to someone. As long as that phone is associated with Femtocell, the packets go through the Femtocell, and we pull them out and reassemble the picture.
And it's just like a JPEG over HTTP or something?
Yep, very basic actually.
So it sounds like actually the phone call is the most difficult of all of them.
Yeah, that had us beating our heads against the wall for quite some time, and so we've got some very talented guys at ISEC, and so we kind of farmed it out to one of them who, you know, was able to pull that phone call out in much less time than we ever would have thought possible, which didn't make us feel too good about ourselves at the time, but so all's well that ends well.
Has this changed like your habits of? I mean, have you switched to another carrier, or what are you doing on your own personal phones now that you've pulled off this attack?
Well, we did create an app for Android called Femtocatcher, and it's in the Google Play Store right now. And basically, it will detect when you're connected to a Femtocell, and it's got an optional piece of functionality where it will, once it detects that it's connected to a Femtocell, it will automatically go into airplane mode.
Oh, that's kind of brilliant. I love that. Cool. So people can just find that on the App Store. What about your research with the the packet sniffing goodness on the actual device?
Well, we didn't release, or we're not going to release any of our code, but our slides from Black Hat as well as some demo videos are up on our website on isecpartners.com.
Fantastic. Well, thank you guys so much. Andrew, Doug, it's a real pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Cheers.
So once again, thank you guys for supporting Hak5. Thank you for supporting Hak5. I'm repeating myself. That wasn't expected. You can find other ways to follow us, hak5.org/follow. Big, huge shout out and thanks to Tim and Hikari and Gio and everybody that was having us out at Toorcon. We had too much fun. All of the awesome speakers. We're going to have another episode next week with some even more fun stuff. Really mind-blowing, cool stuff coming out of Toorcon. I love that con. It's one of my favorites. If you want to support the show directly, hackshop.com is where you can find crazy people with pineapples and bananas on their heads that'll ship you out awesome stuff, including our new pineapple that we're super proud of. And with all of that said, I'm Darren Kitchen, and I'll see you on the internet. Oh, and trust your technologist. And then that thing goes up. It's supposed to, at least. It's supposed to, at least. There. Hey, we're getting rid of the jib, so one less jibby, jib. All right, that'll work.